IVM.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some swag. Remember, that's ivmpodcast.com/survey where you can fill out the survey.
Here's your smart fact of the day. By now, everybody knows that Will Smith had almost come to win the Oscar for portraying Muhammad Ali, wherein he was actually fighting in a film rather than slapping a comedian at the Oscar show. And that was a few years back. But very few people actually knows that Leonardo DiCaprio only won one Oscar in spite of being this mega house of talent. And that was for fighting one hungry bear. Right. Welcome to Smarter With Sid. And this episode, I'm trying to figure out, along with you, whether there's any lesson from the Sorry episode that happened in the latest Oscars that we witnessed, where Will Smith went out and gave Chris Rock a smack on his face for a lame joke. Yeah. So let's go. In fact, I wanted to wait for some time to pass before I actually do some episode on this with you guys, because I figured out that there's so many people talking about this incident, and by now we know that Will Smith has apologized and he's resigned from the academy and he's kind of made all the right noises. But frankly, when it was his night to make some noise because he won the best actor, he actually didn't, and he got really angry. He was clearly out of control. So I thought to myself, well, is there some lesson that any person listening to Smarter with Sid can take away? And funnily enough, I took two, which are actually immediately applicable to any one of us. And I think these are the two that I want to give. One is from Will Smith's side. And if I look at Will Smith, yeah, sure, I think there is clearly something going on in his mind about his relationship, about his marriage, and I don't want to get into that. But he just lost his cool. He lost his temper in a situation wherein he was supposed to be at his best behavior. And that calls out for anger management. And while many of you might just talk about anger management as that funny movie you've seen starring Robert De Niro or something like that, I think it takes a special kind of losing your cool when you ruin your biggest night ever, in your professional sphere by going out and whacking somebody who clearly was well within his rights to make that joke or whatever it may be. And it's interesting to know that. It's interesting to know that anger management exists for all of us, including celebrities. We expect celebrities to be these beautiful personas off screen, the way in which we visualized, Will Smith being an Independence Day or, any other movie like Ali might not be the perfect thing to say, but somewhere I think a lot of times actors allow their on-screen characters to make a false persona for them, which they start believing in, and they feel compelled to act out that persona even to their near and dear ones, especially if you reckon how Will Smith behaved, wherein he first laughed at the joke and then saw his wife's upset reaction and then went out and did his thing. So I think that if any one of us has anger management issues, we probably need to solve them either in private or going to therapy or something around this before it blows up in our face. And I mean this to all people who are especially succeeding. Now, why do I mean this? Because it's very easy to actually look at somebody who's struggling in life, somebody who's failing, somebody who's not got all of his or her act together, and look at their anger management from a perspective that may even invoke a certain sense of some sympathy or empathy or whatever. Not that any kind of physical violence is something that I condone, but you can actually look at it and understand it because we've all been there and done that. But now, if you see Will Smith's behavior, it comes across as a child being petulant and somebody who's like this, school bully. In fact, somebody who's living in an ivory tower, believing in his own fairy tale, looking at the world with the eyes of privilege. And that becomes incredibly difficult to swallow. So, hey guys, if you're succeeding, and if you're succeeding in spite of your anger that you might be showing to yourself, your work, or your team, just take some stock, take a step back, and figure out if you want to do something about it. That's lesson number one. But this is not the biggest lesson. Lesson number two is what I thought was just so amazing, and I want to spend a little more time on that. I think Chris Rock rocks. Yeah, I know that's kind of a funny pun or maybe an unfunny pun, but I'm not a comedian. But Chris Rock is. And you know what? When he got slapped on the face, he genuinely didn't expect that to happen. He was doing his role, and maybe the joke is a little offensive to Will Smith or anybody like that. But most jokes seem to be coming out of a roast, which seems to be the de rigueur category of comedians going out on Oscar night and generally poking fun at, rich, important people. In fact, Chris Rock did a recent joke on Jeff Bezos, wherein he said he's so rich that, even when he got divorced, he still remains the richest man in the world or something like that. And Bezos, you could see him grimace, you could see him cringe, but he was taking it. He was taking it on the chin, and he did not clearly do anything to Chris Rock. Maybe he can do something later, but I don't know. I don't know about that. And maybe I'm just a little wary now of comedians getting slapped or kicked or some behind the scenes activity to get them out of any system that they might inhabit. But hey, we do need comedians. My soft spot for comedians. But coming back, Chris Rock showed amazing presence of mind after being slapped, because he did 2 or 3 things. One is that he reacted, but he didn't overreact. The second thing that he did was that he actually said, hey man, it's just a joke. It's just a lame joke on G.I. Jane or something like that. And when he got some abuse from Will Smith in return, he was not in a huff, and he did not believe in his own stardom. He had enough presence of mind to understand that he would, in his hands, actually lay the power to ruin the night further for everybody else, including all of those who were nominees and, including Will Smith, or to take it on the chin, literally speaking, and move ahead with that presence of mind so that the bigger picture is not tarnished. He did that. And that was pretty amazing. And I think that is something that as stand-up comedian probably gets, because when he's struggling or she's struggling to become big in their journey, a lot of times you do get verbal abuse. You could do get, people saying get off stage or something of that sort. Maybe hopefully people don't, physically abuse, but I'm sure that has happened. But Chris Rock showed amazing grace and presence of mind to see the bigger picture, even in his, really weird moment. Now, the second thing that he did was, okay, you're a stand-up comedian. You can actually roll with the punches and, kind of do a little smart ad-libbing, and you could put it down to Chris Rock's comedy routine and him being such a great comedian, etc. But I think what he did afterwards was even more impressive, because he could have gone back in a huff, he could have gotten back angry, and I'm sure he was. But what he did was he didn't press charges against Will Smith. Maybe he realized that the entire community that he and Will both represent could have been, severely damaged. Their reputations would come off very poorly. The second thing that he did, that he didn't want Will Smith to be evicted from that night, because he realized that, okay, this is not on. He didn't want to make a bigger hassle of what had already happened. And the third thing he did was that he continued his work. He went in front of shows and he refused to talk about the incident. In fact, he said, hey, I will talk about it. I'll make fun of it and it will be serious and it'll be funny. But at this moment, I've already got some jokes ready for you. And thankfully for him, his jokes all landed on the shows that he made. And in fact, his shows were sold out. So maybe he did win in a very, very weird and abstract and different way than what he thought he would when he was presenting those Oscars. So that's the second lesson, folks. While the first one was anger management and coaching that we might require, the second is showcasing that presence of mind and developing that in sticky situations, which we may all encounter. And I think there's a lot to be learned from Chris Rock. Well, that brings my analysis to, this particular sorry incident to a close. I hope you like this episode of mine. And if you like this episode and this podcast, do like and subscribe. And hey, if you like stuff like what is coming out from here, go to IVM Podcast. They've got some fantastic other podcasts for you. And hey, if you like me, I'm the traveling professor. You can just connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me on Instagram. Until next time then.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Advertising is Dead, Varun speaks with Shashank Mehta, founder and CEO of The Whole Truth Foods. He shares his own journey of moving from eating mostly junk food to starting an enterprise that produces health foods with clean ingredients. The Simplified hosts explore the fascinating topic of mimetic theory and entrepreneur Peter Thiel's interpretations of how anthropologist Renee Girard speaks about it. On Pulyabazi, Pranay and Saurabh analyze how organic farming has affected Sri Lanka. Marathi Kirkitun has a fascinating episode where the Deshmukhs met decode one of India's most celebrated poems. And on Say No to Drama, Chetna unfolds some truths about getting a promotion and the drama around it. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you might be listening to us on. And do check us out on YouTube. We're building a whole bunch of different channels. You can find them on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And we're also doing a small listener survey, which we would really appreciate your help with. It helps us kind of talk to advertisers. So you could go to ivmpodcast.com/survey. It'll just take a couple of minutes and it would be really helpful to us. We do appreciate this. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, SBI Life Insurance and the India Water Portal. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Have you ever wondered where the business world is headed? How the ways in which we create, market, and sell to consumers will evolve? Or if we'll ever go back to wearing pants while working? For answers to all of this and more, tune into Advertising is Dead with me, Varun Dugirala. Every Tuesday, as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond. You can catch all episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from.